Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience working out some technical difficulties, beauty of live theater. But welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. My name is Carly, and I'm going to be the moderator for today. So hopefully you enjoyed our recording of Charlotte's Web. And if programming like this is something that you enjoy, then we would love to see you go over to majestictheater.com and give us a donation. And if you're watching with us live, welcome. We would love to see you participate by sending any questions and comments you have into our live chat below. And if you're watching after hours, you're welcome to comment on our YouTube page or email any feedback you have to info@majestictheater.com. But without any further delay, let's get this show on the road. I would love to introduce the cast of Charlotte's Web. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
As we're
Seeing all of your beautiful faces. And last but not least. All right, cool. Thanks, you guys.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Behind the Curtain children's theater version for Majestic Children's Theater, Majestic Theater in West Springfield, Mass. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that we're late starting. Had some technical trouble. If you're watching us live, and if you're listening on a rerun, I just as much appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Two cast members couldn't be with us: Amore, who played Fern, and Nathan, who played her brother Avery. Unfortunately, but we have the rest of them here, and let's go around the room and introduce each other and say who you played in the show and what you're up to now. All right, and I'm going to go as I see it here, starting with Benjamin.
Hello, my name's Benjamin Upperton. Excuse me. I played Uncle Homer, and right now I am working at Rocky's Ace Hardware and probably going to be going to college to study library science in the fall.
For you. All right, and Kyle, new face. Kyle Dress, how are you?
I am Kyle Dress, and I played Wilbur, and it's right there, but
Very nice.
I'm not really doing anything right now, so
just hanging out, relaxing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. And let's see who's next. Felix.
Hi. My name is Felix Antoi Mensah. I played John Arable, the father of Fern and Avery, in the play. Right now, to keep myself active, occupied during these times, I play a lot of video games. I play some piano. I read. I go outside. Just different things to keep myself occupied. Any plans that I have, I don't know if I just already said this or not, but I will be a freshman at the University of Connecticut next year studying physiology and neurobio, so that's exciting. And yeah, that's really it.
Good for you. Thanks, Felix. Good to have you on board again. Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Webber. I played Templeton in the show, and currently I'm going to be a rising sophomore at Bard College at Simon's Rock, and I'm currently pursuing a liberal arts degree there. I guess, and to keep myself busy in quarantine, I also have been playing a lot of piano. And also, my family is trying to paint the house, so that's also been something I've been doing.
The inside or the outside?
Actually, both.
Both? Oh, darn.
I'm assigned to the inside.
Okay. I would think you'd be very meticulous on the corners and painter's tape and the works. Is that your style, or do you eyeball it?
That is my style.
Do it. Thanks, Allison. It's good to see you. And I know you love your sister, but it's good to see you flying solo today. Usually you and Emily.
Yeah, our internet is a little bit shaky, so we try not to call us at the same time.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Thanks for being here.
You.
And we may not have him for long, but here we have from South Korea right now. It is. He just said it's about 8:15 in the morning there. Moonsu.
Yes, sir.
Jackson. Gang.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Hi, I'm Jackson. I played the president and the photographer, and I helped out on the backstage. And I'm currently at work, and that's how my quarantine is going. Not really quarantine, but still. And I'm playing guitar and singing and recording, and then like posting on Instagram and stuff. That's how I spend my time.
Good for you. Thanks for
Yeah.
being here, Jackson. And whenever you got to bug out, that's cool.
All right.
And you said you're at a bakery. You work at a bakery?
Yes, I do work at a bakery. I don't bake, but I just take care of the counter and cashier, and cleaning up stuff,
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Jackson. And we have Autumn.
Hi, I'm Autumn. I'm currently a senior in high school. I played Charlotte. I'm going to UMass in the fall for theater. What else? I sing a lot. I act. I play piano, saxophone. That's it. That's about it.
Great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Autumn. 3 piano players in the cast. Wow. I didn't know if I realized you and Allison played. That's great. So, so I'll throw it out to you guys. This is, once again, I've said this many times about every time I do this, that during the day I think about the show and I go, do I have much to say about this? I don't know. But then as I think about it, I feel like I got plenty to say. I have plenty to say on this particular show. Some of the first things that come to mind, it's like, I don't want to be negative. I don't think they're negative things, but just the first things that come to mind for me is just, it's probably the first thing, I'll just say it now. The first thing I remember saying to you guys is like, I know that this story is just super, super popular and it's going to bring people in. And it did. It probably was the most attended children's theater show that we've ever done. I think just on name recognition alone, people love this Charlotte's Web. And I think we wanted to be honest and upfront with you guys right off the bat and say, I'm not crazy about the story, and I never have been, even since I was a kid. I don't dislike it. I wonder, why does it have that huge appeal? And I think there's some issues with the script, and I think there's some changes that we made that helped. But at a certain point, it was, how much can you do? And I think some of that shows in the second act, but again, it's the script more than you guys. Avery kind of disappears, and that's unfortunate. And how do you even do that? And I also think about, and this happens always with kind of the third show in our slot, is that we're rehearsing literally on top of getting the performances done and well executed of the previous 2 shows, because we do 3 shows in repertory. So the third show, it doesn't get any less of, I think, my time and thought and skill and passion, but I think it might get a tad less energy. I tend to look at, like, when I watched this, I looked at the bottom of the houses and the bottom of the fences and the bottom of the hay bale, and I was like, there should be grass and stuff poking out from there. And I see little things like that I normally would attend to, that I see that I let slip. For a small example, but anyway, those were some of my thoughts going into today, and I was thinking about the 3 things that I showed you guys to kind of help inspire you, that reminded me of Charlotte's Web, some of the themes, and we can get into that. And the other thing that I thought of that was kind of a highlight, I think for me, I'm unfortunately Maury isn't here. I love her as Fern, and I really love I love the entire cast, but Felix as the you would play the father, but you're also the narrator, which isn't the suggested doubling. Narrator sometimes is often just their own person, but I love the father stepping in and out of narration, and I love Felix as the narrator. But the puppetry stands out to me, excelling at that. I think Kyle excelled at that pig. It wasn't easy at first, and we had to work with it to keep it alive, and we can get into that. And Autumn, Autumn with this little spider, but how much can you do with the little spider? So that was kind of tough. But I think it works well. And then Allison really excelling with that rat, I think is beautiful, and that rat coming to life. And so I'm really pleased with the puppetry aspects. So anyway, those were just some of my thoughts going on today, and we can touch on any and all of those. But as per normal, I will throw it out to you guys at first. What would you like to talk about? What were your thoughts on today? If you're thinking about what did you want to talk about? Hopefully you got a chance to rewatch this. What were your thoughts rewatching it? What did you like, not like? What's your memory of performing it? Anywhere at all? Go ahead, guys. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, well, to go back to your the puppetry, it was amazing. It was cool that some of us, I don't even know if any of us really were puppeteers before, but for this show we picked it up and picked it up beautifully. I know Autumn, her usage of Charlotte as a puppet, while also making the tapestry, putting the words up.
Yeah.
She did great.
Thank you.
Everyone loved Templeton. Templeton was the crowd favorite.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Allison brought that rat to life for
Yeah.
sure. And Wilbur too. Wilbur was able to shoot in the crowd. You know, he was adorable. And he came out as a baby and then popped up as that big pig. And he was still able to maneuver and make it look like that pig was alive. So sure, puppeteering. For everybody who did it, even Moonsu. I don't know if he's still here, but with the ducks,
Yeah.
he really went off with those two. So just this whole show, the beauty of the puppets really added to the value of this show, the beauty of the show. So yeah, for sure with that.
Yeah.
I must
Thanks, Felix. Go ahead, Ben.
I must say I when I watched it, Steve, I didn't actually notice that the script was poor. I thought I
don't think it's awful. I just think it has some. I think there's some problems. But I don't think it's like bad. I wouldn't choose a bad, So yeah, I just want to be clear about that. Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I do remember us patching it up, but when I was watching it the second time round,
yeah,
I didn't see fault with it. You just sort of had a very nice, simplistic, clean vision, and I thought you did it quite well. It was just simple. There wasn't any frills to it. It was just this very nice kids story that I thought we pulled off. I thought it was nice that we didn't have too many effects or too many,
yeah. Yeah. So a couple things just thought, on that. I think it was the James and Giant Peach Zoom thing that we did where I was talking about how at a certain point around Jungle Book, I was kind of saying, gosh, I've had enough of kids dressing up like animals and children's theater being this, people trying their best to be animals. And I've seen productions of Charlotte's Web, and the guy playing the pig wears like pink overalls and a hat with on it, and squats down and he snorts and kind of, and I even talk about, I had mentioned some show that I can hardly remember, like an 80s kind of children's theater show. Ben Vereen was the host of it. I YouTubed it after I talked about it, and it scared me to death. My point was that they do it really, really well. They really come across like animals there. The makeup is fantastic. The costumes are fantastic. And the result is that it's frightening. So, and speaking of that 80s, I mean, there's a quality that seems dated to me at this point. I think it still can be well done at a certain point. For something like Jungle Book, for something like James and Giant Peach, I think you have to dress people up. You can't have people half the cast be puppets that people are bent over trying, if people are running around trying to tell a story, they can't all always be puppets. But I think the puppetry works for this production. I prefer seeing the two little puppet geese and the puppet spider and the puppet pig mixed with the human beings rather than human beings dressed up like animals trying to mix in with people playing humans. Yeah.
What makes it easier too is the puppets. There's not a lot of this show. Once again, back to that simplicity aspect. There's not a lot of movement for the animals either. It's kind of like when we're in a farm scene, the animals are, the ducks are on the hay bale. It's like they don't have to walk over to Templeton to talk to them. It's kind of everyone just kind of sitting around talking to each other. So it's that lack of movement or a lack of intense action kind of helps with making it easier to use puppets too. So for sure. And then on another point with Ben's, the simplicity of this story too. It's nice. It's simple, very simple, but also it has those very complex themes or ideas that we're trying to put through the device of a children or the genre of a children's story. In order to make sure that the audience understands that we're trying to talk about, the cycle of life and coming of age and growth. we have to make sure that they understand the story that we're trying to tell. And so because it's so simple with these complex themes or whatever, it really helps to push through that message to our mostly children audience, also adults, but you know.
Yeah, it's interesting that it has this. You guys keep saying simple. I can understand that. Yeah, the simple, this kind of relaxed nature to it, this calm, sweet feeling. And yeah, it's funny that it's simple, and yet as you bring up Felix, it's talking about some pretty heavy duty stuff. You know, and we can get into that in a minute. Speaking of some of the things that I had showed you guys before we started working on this, some media clips. But also, and I was thinking about, it's funny and I mentioned this, I forget in what past Zoom conference. And, you know, I don't know if this is just like me getting older or something, but it's like, you know, for years as I do this, and I'm still this way with most shows, but it's like I'm scared to death of dead air on the stage. Things need to keep moving. You know, I think things need to be energetic. You know, children's plays, high school plays sometimes just tend to have like a blasé feeling, and it's not anyone's intention. It just kind of happens, and you need to say, hey, this is the most important day of your life. You know, in this 2 hours that we get to see, stakes are high, and blah, 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 blah. And I think all that is super, super important. But I think, you know, I've harped on it so much for so long that when I look back on this show in particular, but also the beginning of Cat in the Hat, you know, with the soft jazz music and they're slow and there's some silence going on, and I think it was good to. It was nice for me to revisit the value of presenting things in that way. You know, like not being afraid of dead air and just accepting a calmer atmosphere, not being afraid of it, not be feeling so rushed to fill every silence with words and barraging them with entertainment. I think this was a good one to kind of step back and relax and set the mood. You know, so I like our opening, that Felix coming out and tying his shoes, kind of like Mr. Rogers, and it just has a more relaxed nature to it that reminds me of older kind of PBS shows. And I think some shows today still have that, what I've seen of kids entertainment. Some you know, are just our barrage of noise and color, but some are still pretty take their time, which I appreciate. So, but anyway, we can talk more about that stuff. Or anything else, guys? Riffing off of those ideas at all?
I think what kept the audience's attention was good acting with the simplicity of the story. I think that's what definitely what I noticed is that's what it leans on to keep the audience's attention, because if we had just, as you say, just blasé through it, then the audience, it would have become a snooze fest and no one would really want to see it. You know, just as simple as that, I think.
Yeah. Anybody else?
And then on top of that too, I remember when Steve was telling me to, because with my speeches, when I memorize them, I remember them like together. So I like to say them really fast to just get it out as it's coming to me. I like to just say it.
Yeah.
So I remember at first when I was memorizing my monologues, I would like say them really fast, trying to get them all out while I still remember them. But he told me to take my time, because the whole mood of this show was like as you said, like a chill, like a relaxed kind of show. Ben said that if we were going too fast and not allowing the audience to fully digest everything that was coming at him, the show wouldn't have been interesting. Would have been as enjoyable to watch. And so for sure, for me especially, I had to really get that mood, that relaxed mood, make sure that when I say my stuff, that it comes out and I'm taking breaks and I'm like going slowly and stuff. So yeah, I see that for sure.
Yeah, the same thing for me too, because I remember I had monologues, like they weren't as long as Felix's, but I had some, and I talk really fast, so I just like say things really fast, and that's not Charlotte at all. Charlotte, like, you know, she takes her time and she thinks about things and she really like puts thought into what she says, and so her character is like a slow talker. She's also old too, so like, so it's kind of like old people don't talk fast. So it's like I had to really slow down and just kind of reflect on what I was saying and what it meant and what the audience would take of what I was saying and how I deliver it so that the audience fully understands like what I'm saying means and the importance of it. So I had to really be mindful of that and how I said my lines because that was like a big part of it alone.
Yeah. I remember when I was like learning the lines and stuff, and when I was like, first thing, I see the lines like too quick, and I had to like slow it down and like make it more meaningful, so it would like have more of an impact. And I remember that monologue at the end. I messed up on that a few times, but I remember the last show we got that down. I got that down. So
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's funny at a certain point when you're acting and you get pretty good at moving around and you start to get comfortable and you want to come in pumped full of energy and you learn how to call that on command and you're proud of yourself and you guys are teenagers anyway, so it's like you're full of that energy anyway. But a part of something to learn, I think, always is it's like, whoa, stop, slow down for a minute, think about what you're saying, and think about you're given these lines, but there's space in between them, and you can fill it up with anything. And just thinking in daily life, what you say is what you say, but there's also you're thinking a billion things on top of that, and what comes out of your mouth is just what comes out of your mouth. So I think just stop and think as an actor and show that you're thinking, and are you like you're choosing your words carefully, or that one sentence or a pairing or tripling of sentences is one thing, and then there's a shift in thought, and then the rest or is a change in thought, or you know what I mean. Those are all important things to remember. But I loved I like but I liked Felix though as the narrator because you kind of naturally have a calm disposition on the stage and just a very relaxed nature. You look super relaxed, and I really, you just have that, which is hard to do. I don't know if you're got butterflies inside or not. I don't know, but it doesn't. You can answer that, but I don't see it, and I like that seems to make the kids calm, and there's something, again, this trying the opposite here, and that's an important thing always to keep in mind too. Like, what's the opposite? Kids, having the narrator not come at you, like a ton of bricks and wallop you with information and try and be like, hey guys, I'm gonna, we're gonna have a great time today, but doing the opposite and pulling you in slowly, not saying anything, sipping the coffee, taking in the sounds. And the first thing you even say to the kids is, calm down, listen to this, listen to that, stop and smell the roses. It has this kind of be present feeling to it beginning, and even the fact that it's morning and when we get into lights and sound, the fact that the lights slowly, I think, I had Abby, who's on lights, change from early morning light, still dark. Slowly becomes like purple and then yellow and then blue and then daytime. And then you start to hear it goes from crickets and the crickets fade out and then birds start to fade up. So all that happens kind of slowly. I really like the whole, that whole opening, and it being morning and just being kind of calm and chill and luring the kids in that way. And I think it works. They seem to calm down and be intrigued by the slower pace. I think. Go ahead, Allison, then Ben.
Okay. I was just going to say, when I read this book when I was like a kid, so when I found out that I was going to do it, I read it again, and I noticed there were a lot of like parallels in the script and the book. Like, I feel like a lot of the script just took what was in the book and just kind of put that as lines. So I think like the narrator parts, I really enjoyed like listening to Felix, because for me it was kind of like what an ideal audiobook would sound like.
Yeah.
Because I generally didn't like get to see him because I was backstage. But just like hearing him, I was like, this is what I want if I wanted an audiobook of Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, narrator is a great device that's what I use for scripts that I've adapted as a narrator, because he gets to say all the things that the narrator of the book does and all the things that lines between people can't, setting the scene, setting the mood and all that. You're gonna say something on that, Felix?
Yeah, no, in terms of parallels, I was gonna say that's the same thing with the I watched a bit of like a few clips of the cartoon as well. Like a lot of the lines were pulled right out of the cartoon. Like the first part where we Fern comes in and she sees me sharpening the knife, and she's like, or the axe, and she's like, what are you gonna do with that? Some pigs were born last night, and then I just kind of leave it like that. Don't tell her anything else, like as if she'll understand what I'm trying to say. But instead, Mrs. Arable says that, and then in line that Autumn also, or Charlotte says about we were born, we live a little, and we die, like that. That's pulled right out of the cartoon and stuff. They even put that in the live action movie that came out. So like a lot of stuff. There's a lot of like parallels with those lines out of. I think I read the book as well as a kid. I don't really remember, but for the cartoon, there was a lot of similarities in lines.
Yeah, they all pull from that source material book, which is a good. Yeah, that's good source material. That's a good book, and I think the book itself has that sort of kind of rainy day on the farm pace to it. I just think at a certain point that once your plot gets going, that plot needs to keep going, and I think what happens is it falls back into a day on the farm, and Avery and Fern fight over something, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything, but I mean, it's something that would happen on the farm, but does it relate to the plot of the pig? And then if you keep saying that there's the plot of the pig, he's going to be killed and eaten or whatever, but then you undercut that by having him be like, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now, I'm going to go to sleep. And I mean, that's okay for a novel, because you're feeling a long stretch of life, but for a 2-hour play, it's kind of hard to replicate that. And when your main character keeps taking naps and checking out for a while, it kind of hurts. So, but it's just a weird thing. How do you stage this and keep that calm, that farmyard, that rainy day on the farm, life slow down a little bit feeling, with keeping a plot moving, and there being stakes, which certainly are. There's the biggest stakes of all, life and death.
I remember you were talking about finding lines, taking your time with pauses. It reminded me of an interview I saw of Mr. Rogers. I can't remember which one it was. And he did talk about how important it was knowing when he got to sort of a conclusion about the lesson in his program, not necessarily at the very end of his program, but sort of the punchline of what he was trying to say. And he would just naturally take a long pause. And apparently people said, even when not on doing a television script, just in natural conversation, he would pause to let people take in what he had just said, or let someone come up with their own conclusions, which was something quite interesting that we sort of were able to do at the same time when we sort of reached a punchline in in a moment of our script. And the other thing that you jogged my memory about was when I was taking an acting class, and my teacher talked a lot about what keeps an audience's attention is what you called it, finding light, meaning making the impression that it's just coming right off the top of your head. And that's, you don't, as you say, you can just take your time and pretend that if it looks like it's coming off the top of your head, then people will be more interested.
Yeah.
A great example.
Go ahead.
A great example she did was when I was doing To Be or Not to Be monologue. And she said, let's just break down to be or not to be. People normally say that in one sentence, to be or not to be, that is the question. But she said, it's actually a question. It's to be or not to be. So if you break it up like that, then people, then you'll get people's interested. That's a hook for you. And so that was just one example of just sort of the little things we did. Sorry, I'm ranting. Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. I do too. I think, Ben, but I completely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it's important to just slow down and break things down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else on those things or anything else having to do with the show or what stuck out to you watching? Go ahead, Autumn.
I just remember in the the first rehearsal or something, you were talking about like you were going on about the delivery and how we should say the lines. And like when you were showing us clips from Mr. Rogers, you said how he talked really slow, and then how people would tell him like that you're going too slow or like no one can understand. And he's like, well, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the kids. Like it's not for just kind of like, this is my audience and this is how I'm supposed to talk and I'm supposed to say things so that they can understand what I mean and like what I'm trying to like come across to people. And he was like, that's why I talk so slow, because kids, like, they need to process things more and they take longer to process things. So if he takes pauses, like there's time for them to, you know, think about what he said and what he means and like how it teaches them to interpret things in different ways. And so in talking slow and in pausing and taking your time, then that gives kids the chance to develop their own like interpretations, even if they don't realize it, of what you're saying and what it means like to you and what you can like learn and carry with you as you get older.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of, we mentioned Mr. Rogers a couple times. Do you guys want to talk about, so I showed you 3 things, one of them being a Mr. Rogers clip before we started. 3 or maybe 4, I don't know. But what were those things that I showed you? I remember that we barely discussed it really after. I was just kind of, there it is. You know, I'll let you think about it, you know, on your own time and let it influence your performance or how you approach the show. I'll let it influence you whether it does or not. So I don't know if we ever really talked about, you know, those things again, but I thought that they just thematically connected with Charlotte's Web, and they on a feeling, an aesthetic feeling level connected with Charlotte's Web on this slowing down and pauses and silence, and except not being afraid of pauses and silence in a more relaxed nature, etc. So they matched in theme and they matched in style, it seemed to me, and I wanted that to influence your guys' performance and how you approach the show. So do you guys want to say what those 3 things were, and did they influence you in your performance or how you approach the show, or was it whatever? I don't know. You know, you tell me.
Yeah. I remember specifically the Mr. Hooper example you showed us, because that one, I don't know, it resonated with me because like they have that's like part of the show. It's like a big thing in the show is that about Charlotte, and then when we watched that clip, it just kind of it stuck with me.
It's a little depressing and sad, certainly. So Kyle's talking about, we watched the clip of Sesame Street when the actor who was playing Mr. Hooper, the actor himself had died, and they were like, what do we do? Do we write him out of the show? Do we replace the actor? And they decided to have the guts to go ahead and make that a part of the show, and it's the cast having to explain to Big Bird that he's died, and Big Bird is kind of the child in the scenario. He asks questions like, what are the most typical questions a child asks about when someone dies, and where are they, and do I see them again? And it's a really moving clip because they were actually friends with this guy, and you can see the cast like breaking up as they're performing. It's really devastating. It's really sad. It's really sweet. It's really beautiful. You know, and yeah, I mean, that so has to do with our show. The show is about, you know, losing a friend, and it's really sad, and it just has all those things, and how do you deal with that, and it just is what it is. you know um
And it
so
just
yeah,
goes
kind of a bummer. I mean, it's very sweet and it's beautiful, but yeah, it's also sad and bittersweet. It's all those things is Charlotte's Web. So yeah, go ahead, someone's gonna say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it just goes back to that the fact that this is a children's show trying to push forward sort of adult topics, and so
Yeah.
of course, like Kyle said, that definitely was a powerful clip, that Sesame Street clip. Of course, theirs may have been a little bit more emotional as they actually did lose a character where we had to sort of act as if we had lost, a character, and that Mr. Am I forgetting his name?
Hooper.
Rogers.
All right, Big Bird forgot his name too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Mr. Rogers clip, of course, because we're pushing forward adult topics or pushing forward themes that kids don't usually talk about, we have to, as he did, say something, take a pause, let them really hear and digest what we just said, so they understand what we're talking about. Charlotte was explaining to Wilbur that she's gonna die because she's not feeling well and she just had her eggs. In the movie, the live action movie, she states, "Oh, I'm languishing" or something. I think is that
Yeah.
the word that.
Okay.
And Wilbur being a kid, of course, what the heck is languishing? Weird word. And she goes, "I'm dying." Like straight out, And Wilbur, we all know he came to the farm as a baby, not knowing anything, and now he's learning a super grown up thing like death. Like, whoa, why is my friend who's helped me so much now I'm gonna lose her? So yeah, it has a lot of tough topics for a kid's show. So those clips that you showed us for sure, they definitely helped us to put this into perspective as much as we could.
That's great. That's good. Yeah, you mentioned, and we can let's keep talking about the rest of the clips and stuff. But real quick, you had said an important thing for me going into this, Felix, that helped me like the story and understand it a little better. What was this idea of Wilbur being a kid? I think that's really, really, really important. And Big Bird is kind of the kid in that situation. And I didn't quite realize until doing this that he is a child, or the pig is a child. So I think when he's played by an adult, when in the 70s cartoon he seems to have kind of an adult voice, if I remember right, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I think he should be a child, and Kyle at a young 14, you just had the voice for that, Kyle, and it really fit, and I got that he was a child. So it makes more sense that he says, "Oh, all right, Charlotte, I'm gonna go lie down." Like, he doesn't fully grasp what's going on. It's something that he has to figure out because he is a kid. And it also helped me in the sense that the story used to bother me because I used to go, Charlotte does everything for this pig and this pig does nothing for her. But but it makes sense if he's a child and he just says cute things and he's just fun to be with, qua child, then I can see Charlotte getting something out of that friendship. Whereas sometimes when he played like an adult or has an adult voice, he starts to come across as selfish or stupid or oblivious, or you start to say, what does Charlotte get out of their friendship? And you start to say, why is she so completely altruistic, self-sacrificial to him? I like the friendships where both get you both get something out of each other. You both get value out of each other. And if he's more of a kid, then he just naturally will be good company to you if he's a sweet kid. So I can see Charlotte getting value from a child, Wilbur, as opposed to when he's an adult. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In the live action movie, actually, which was one difference, Charlotte is more of like a loner at the farm. In fact, I think the animals don't really like her. They actually add one character. It's a horse, like a really big horse, and they make it like ironic, like he's completely petrified of Charlotte, and like all the other animals are like, oh, gross, it's a spider. So like Wilbur presents her like with friendship, something that she doesn't really have at the farm. She has to deal with all these animals that don't like her. Oh, she has Avery trying to catch her. she's so Wilbur comes to the farm and presents her with friendship, and so that there we can see sort of like, I don't know if that's symbiotic but there's that friendship there. There's a mutual. There's something that they're giving and taking. Whereas you have a point
Yeah.
and when it's like Charlotte from the beginning just gives her all to Wilbur, and Wilbur kind of just, I don't know, like what does he do for
Goes to
Charlotte?
sleep. Nothing.
So it's like, but in the movie they kind of give like a motivation as to why Charlotte is so invested in Wilbur, and it's because Wilbur's her only friend. Wilbur has been her one true friend throughout it all through it all. So she's
Yeah.
willing to give it all for Wilbur.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, Felix, which is we were talking about this last week with Treasure Island a little bit about this often recurring theme with children's stories is this, like, don't judge a book by its cover, and appearances aren't what they seem, and you have to get to know somebody first, and all that sort of thing, right? So we were talking about that with Long John Silver, right? He's a pirate, he's a thief, and maybe he's killed people, and he's got the wooden leg, and he's gruff, but then you learn, as Jim Hawkins, the young boy, gets to know him, that he has a heart, that he has feelings, that he's more complex. So yeah, you can bring a good point that it's important that Charlotte is a spider, and spiders are, misunderstood, and then we think they're just ugly and evil looking, and they look like they're straight out of hell, and why is that? So I think that's part of it, that Wilbur, being a child, is unassuming and accepting, and although even he says at first, like, oh, you eat flies, and he seems maybe scared of her at first, but yeah. So, but yeah, you're right. It's important that she's a spider. Yeah.
And I have like a line where it's right after that little interaction with Wilbur and Charlotte where he like, oh, you eat flies and stuff, and I say, Wilbur wasn't like sure of his friendship with Charlotte at first, but as the days went on, he began to realize that Charlotte had a pure heart and was kind and loyal or something like that.
Yeah,
I forget
yeah.
the
Sure.
like not to treat a book by its cover like Charlotte does. She is a blood-sucking spider, but she's also a great friend, a loving, like a mother.
Yeah, he learns her virtues, things that he likes about her. Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
I think also, like, sort of in the same vein, something the script touches on is when Wilbur has the initial reaction of, ew, you eat flies? That's gross. Charlotte says, well, that's the way I'm made. I can't help being born this way. And I think that's like an important message, just to say, like, you can't change the way you're born, and to like embrace that in yourself, even if like you don't eat flies.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about what was the Mr. Rogers. Speaking of, we talked about Mr. Rogers quite a bit, but we haven't mentioned what happens in the Mr. Rogers clip that I showed you guys. You remember?
The dog.
The dog? Yeah. Yeah, he talks about his own dog that he lost, as a child, and he takes out a picture and he says, this is her name. So he actually just takes out a picture of himself as a kid and this little dog. And he says, I still think of her even at my age. And, and I think that's important. It's pretty brilliant on his part that he doesn't talk about a person in that clip. He talks about a dog. And I think that's, most kids, hopefully, that's their first introduction to someone, a death is a pet or something that doesn't live as long, and so that's their first encounter with that. So it's dealing with the subject, but not yet with humans. It's kind of prepping you for that. It's like when you lose a dog, I don't know who's experienced that, but it's like, yeah, obviously an enormous part of losing the pet that hurts is losing the pet. But it's also just like this it's just like this reminder of, death in general. And there's just another element of losing a pet that makes it tough beyond losing the pet itself. Anyway, but just consider that, E.B. White and Mr. Rogers approach that subject, which is a hard subject for kids, by going the way of animals, to help ease you into it, and it's using animals the barnyard animals in Charlotte's Web, and Mr. Roger talking about his dog. Go ahead, Autumn.
I remember when I was little, so I used to watch the live action movie like all the time. That's like what I knew for Charlotte's Web. That's what we watched and I grew up on. And I just remember like watching it and being like really scared of like death. I was like this little girl.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, this is a real thing. And I was like, this is bad. Really bad. So I just remember watching it, and it kind of was like a wake up call to me because I was little and I tried to like I didn't really know a lot. And so it was like, it really got me to understand like, this is part of living. Like, this is part of like life.
Yeah.
Something that happens and there's nothing you can do to change it. And it's just like, you can try to prepare for it, but there's really like nothing that's going to prepare you for it. Cause it's just something that you can't prep for. Like, you just have to kind of accept that it's going to happen and then like deal with it when it does in your own way. But it's like when you're a kid, you interpret things differently. And so you're like, it's a newer thing to you. So you don't have as much acceptance as you would if you were like 30 or 40 or whatever. So it's like the beginning of the process of understanding and accepting what it is.
Yeah. And in a beautiful way, I mean, using art to do so.
Yeah.
Art in indirect ways, introducing you to the subject by way of animals or something else. Something else can be a lot of things. That I remember something that I used to love as a kid, even though it made me sad. And this is the point too, is that, it's cathartic. It helps you deal with these sorts of things when in real life or these sorts of feelings. But I remember it's like a half-hour cartoon called The Snowman. You guys know that?
Mm-mm.
No, Snowman? No. Look it up. YouTube it. It's only a half hour. It's beautiful, like hand-drawn, pencil-drawn, cartoon, traditional cartoon. So it has a beautiful animation, beautiful music, simple story, and it's about a little kid. There's no talking. So again, relax, no talking. I should have brought up The Snowman when I was talking to you guys about Mr. Rogers clips. Yeah, Autumn.
It's a book too, right? I feel like I know.
Too.
It's the one where the snowman like comes to the kid's house and takes them away, and they like fly and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Book.
Yeah. And well, the book's beautiful, and the movie's beautiful, and the movie we can get into this. The movie has a funny little ending. That's not in the book. That's interesting. Anyway, so yeah, it's about a kid who builds a snowman. It comes to life at midnight. Right when magic things happen. He introduces the snowman to the house, and the snowman takes him up and they fly, for some reason. It has a dream-like feeling, is it all a dream? But it ends with him coming out, they say goodnight for the night, and kid goes off to bed, and the snowman stays out in the yard. And when he goes out the next morning, the snowman is completely melted, and he just like kneels before it. Blackout. I mean, that's it. It's so moving and sad, and the movie is with the mixture of him coming out and kneeling before the snowman and the music starting, and then just the credits start to roll, and it's like, that's it. It's pretty powerful. What's interesting is that the book doesn't have this, but the movie adds that when they fly, they go to the North Pole and they meet Santa, and he gets a scarf with Snowman on it. And it's nice. I think that was, probably like whoever the people who are producing this, pushing the author to do maybe, or saying, let's tap into that Christmas commercial, let's make it marketable for Christmas time, because you're halfway there with the snowman coming to life, right? Let's throw in Santa. So that is what it is, But what's interesting is that, so he gets this scarf with snowmen on it from Santa Claus. And in the movie, and then at the end, when he goes out and the snowman's melted, he kneels before it. But he goes, wait a minute, and he pulls out the scarf. So it's like, oh, it couldn't be a dream because I still have the scarf, So I like both endings, both are interesting. On the one hand, it's really nice to think maybe it was all a dream. Who knows? Who cares? There's something kind of cool about pulling out the scarf and, oh, it wasn't a dream. It really happened. I don't know. Anybody else? Yeah, Carly, go ahead.
So Anne-Marie was here with us today.
Yeah,
so hi, Anne-Marie. And she brings up another topic for discussion. We talked about the relationship with Wilbur and Charlotte, but she says The book calls more attention to the fact that Fern's visit to Wilbur becomes less frequent as the summer progresses, especially after meeting Henry. Her relationship with Wilbur changes. Does anyone have any comments on that? So, throw it out to you guys.
Go ahead.
I think part of it is the fact that like because the show is targeted towards children, it's about like your childhood and what you experience as a child. And so it's sort of talking about, because Fern also represents a child when the show starts, so she's kind of like a little girl who makes friends with Wilbur, and she can like understand him and they communicate and stuff like that. But as the show progresses, you know, she gets older and she, you know, she discovers boys and relationships and just being like an older girl and things that older girls like, because they sort of drift away from their childhood like experiences and they move on to new things. So I think that's a big part of that is showing like, you know, this doesn't last forever. And even people that have the most faith and the most beliefs and, you know, like talking to animals and things like that, you know, eventually you start to sort of move on and discover new things and new chapters of your life that come with aging and just becoming older and discovering things that you're more interested in. So like with Fern sort of visiting Wilbur less, you know, she's discovering new things that she would rather be doing and having different interests than just, you know, like she's probably busier doing other things with friends and whatever than just like having all this time to just be with Wilbur like all day.
Yeah, it's interesting about like how because she's younger, that's why she hears all the animals, or is it just because your imagination is stronger when you're a kid, or is it this Twilight Zone type of thing where it's like that's only something you get by way of being a kid and being in the right mental state or the right spiritual state or something, that you can understand the animals, you know, and that's something you grow out of or forget, you know, as you get older. A lot of
it reminds me of the Polar Express. I don't know if anyone, that was like, it's like my favorite. But it's how like the parents, you never see the adults, you just see the kids, and like you can only see the kids' expressions, and the adults you just see from like neck up, like or neck below, like you can't see their faces. And so there's the whole thing about how only the people who like believe in Santa can hear the bell, and the parents can't hear the bell, but like the kids can, because like they believe and they're kids and they're still young and naive and their imagination runs wild. And so that's like a big thing, is like when you grow up, most people just stop believing and stop caring or whatever. And so like that's why like the parents couldn't hear it when you rang it. And that's like what that reminds me of.
Yeah, that reminds me too of what was I gonna say? Well, E.T. a little bit. I didn't notice until later years when I watched E.T. that except for the mom, all the adults you never see their faces until E.T. dies, and then everyone takes off their masks, which is just interesting, you know. So yeah, you never see adults from the waist up or see their faces in that movie, and I think it's just playing with those themes, you know. And that movie Hook with Robin Williams, you know, Peter Pan, and it's like he was Peter Pan and he went on all these adventures, but he forgot. It's like his memory's just wiped since being an adult, and he slowly, as he goes back to Neverland, remembers all these things. So it's like, yeah, it's like this thing that you grow out of or whatever, and but maybe you shouldn't, you know.
They do that with a lot of shows. One of my favorite shows growing up, I don't know if they still air it, but it was Fairly Odd Parents on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
And Timmy, the main character, has a miserable life, and so he gets fairies from Fairyville to come and like grant his every wish for as long as he's a kid.
Okay.
Then once he turns a certain age, I forget, it's all this coming of age thing. Once he turns a certain age, his mind is wiped and his fairies are taken away from him and given to another child. And they have, I don't know if it was multiple episodes, but they have a few episodes where they play with that he actually does start to grow, and that they have to like race to find ways to keep him young forever. Or they have to do these different things because they want to stay with Timmy forever. So it's like this whole thing is once you start to grow, you stop believing in magic and like, you know, fairies and the Santa Claus and all those things. So I think a lot of shows skillfully play with that and like use that to their advantage, make the show a little bit more interesting to watch.
Yeah, and try to show that sometimes even metaphorically or in an artistic kind of way, like a snowman melting or Bing Bong disappearing, right, in Inside Out, right? I mean, that's so meaningful, that's the childhood, your imaginary friend disappearing from your memory. What were let's see, what were that's
Steve,
a great point there, Felix, with that show. Yeah, it's very on the nose. Yep, Ben.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just the other thing that as you talked about things going away, something that I've noticed, excuse me, growing up is that so many people, like teachers and friends, they also sort of, fade away as well,
Sure.
and sort of just a very solid way. The way I remember when my great grandmother passed away, she was the first one. It was a bit different for me because it just walloped me that I would never see her again. And
Yeah.
and it's just sort of that progression of growing up, and you have to just sort of accept that everything's in a state of flux all the time, and you can't get used to the way things are. Quite simply, I'm sorry it seems a bit of a simple point, but it's the thing that I got struck with most with watching it.
What? Yeah, yeah, but and it's just amazing that you use art and shows like this or even TV shows, movies, to deal with that, So it's helpful, it's cathartic, it's powerful that art can help you out with those feelings, and know you're not alone and all that sort of thing. Let's see, we're missing so we talked about the Mr. Rogers clip, we talked about the Mr. Hooper clip. There was one other that I played for you guys.
Oh yeah, we already talked about it.
Do you remember, guys?
James Stewart
Yeah.
reading a poem about his dog.
Yeah, I showed you a clip of Jimmy Stewart, an older Jimmy Stewart from like 1982 or something. So he's an older guy on Johnny Carson, and he reads a poem about his dog who recently died. So just speaking, going along with Mr. Rogers talks about his dog, Charlotte's Web using animals to approach the subject, and Jimmy Stewart reading that poem about his dog, and it's so sweet, and it's cathartic too. Speaking of all this being cathartic, that he wrote a poem, he used art to help him grieve and help him deal with it, and that clip is powerful too in the sense that it's not just a child being exposed to art to help them deal with it. It's an old man using art to deal with it, and to see that he could still be choked up over a pet, and you can feel the whole audience kind of sniffling up, and at the end of the poem Johnny Carson's like this. And it's so sweet. So yeah, I think that was the third. So I think those are the three things that I played for you guys. Maybe there's something else, but I just can't remember. Yeah. Anything else, guys, on when you were watching, when you got a chance to rewatch this, if anything stuck out to you? I know that when you're on the stage and you're making entrances and exits, and part of the show is your backstage, when you see the whole show for what it is from an audience perspective, what's going on? Go ahead, Autumn.
So I forgot that this was today, so I didn't get the chance to rewatch the show. But from what I remember, so for most of the show, I'm up on this like ledge thing, and there's like a little ladder that I climb up on, and I just sit there and I kind of move the puppet, and that's like my whole thing is just like my right arm just doing all the work, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and it's just like I don't really get to move around that much except when I'm changing the letters. And it was hard because like we had to really toy with the idea of how this was going to work, because it was like originally I was going to stand, but I had to really climb through the set. And I just remember like hitting my head so many times. I'm surprised I didn't get concussion from that show. But like I just had to like really weave my way through, and like sometimes the words would get stuck, and I remember Jackson was like right below me, so it like hit Jackson sometimes because he was like right there, and he'd have to hand me the words, and like it was just a whole process that we really had to like figure out how it was going to work because it was so important, and it had to be done in like a certain amount of time with the music. And like, you know, sometimes the words get caught, or sometimes it was the wrong word, and so they'd have to say a word, but it would be a different word up on the on the web. So it was really difficult to really get everything like in order, and I was like, I had to, you know, but
I know theater is so hard. I mean, it's hard enough to try and get yourself to an emotional level, or call upon things, or use substitution or whatever to get to an emotional place. But to try and do that when dealing with logistical and technical things, such as hanging up the letters and how do you do the web and how much space do you have in there?
And
Say again?
I said I only had one in hand because my other one was in the puppet, so I had to really work with what I had.
And speaking of puppets too, I should have mentioned this when we were talking about puppets, but you know, 9 times out of 10, they're not even puppets. They're like stuffed animals that I find that I think are large enough or pleasant enough to look at. Yeah, this one is an actual puppet, but it's not like a big professional puppet. This rat, it was, you know, I found the original one at like a Barnes and Noble. You know, but he works. He works well. But the rest are stuffed animals that, you know, you cut a hole in the butt and you stick your hand up there. And I know the pig, we had to take out a lot of the stuffing to make it move around more, Kyle. I remember we experimented with that.
Yeah.
And you have to learn things like keeping them moving and sniffing and looking at things and alive even when they're not talking. Look in the mirror and you know, so it was and then I think we had him standing for a while, and then I said, let's get the stuffing out of there and make him sit, you know, and he looked better sitting. And I wanted the spider to look different. I remember I had a picture of one that had much larger eyes and was furry, and it was a little more cuter, the cutest that you can make a spider. But I wasn't able to hear back from the people who made the picture that I saw that I liked, and I tried making one, and it didn't turn out the way I liked, and thank God.
It was like, it used to be really big. It was like this really big giant thing that was painted in foam, and it kept, you know, it was falling over the place, and it was like hazardous because
I hated it from the get-go. I mean, before I was even finished, I was like, this isn't gonna work, and I hate it. Thank God that Michael's at the end of July was already putting out their Halloween decorations, and they had a big old spider. I said, this can work. And its eyes, incidentally enough, were pretty large. I remember liking that in the picture that I'd found, and I wanted the spider to have the eyes are the window to the soul, right? So I mean, if you're gonna make something as ugly and terrifying as a spider, friendly and lovable, it would be nice if it had some larger eyes, and this one did. Still tough to, you know, see it. It's a touch small, but
I remember because it was like, it's almost like an art form. Like you really have to have it in your mind to work the puppet. Like you're not just acting as yourself. Like you have this character that you're actually using instead of you being the character. So that was really like, it was kind of difficult for me to start with, because first of all, like, you know, she was small, so you'd have to tell me, like, you know, move her over the side more so people see her, and keep her moving around, because I would sort of stop moving my hand. I'd stop moving the puppet around because I'd focus on my lines and what I was saying and how my facial expressions were. Had to like really remind me that it's not you they're supposed to be looking at. You know, the attention's supposed to be drawn to this puppet. That's like, you have to really make this work so people can like avert their eyes to this small little thing. So you have to really like figure out how you're gonna do it and how you're gonna keep moving her so people look at her instead of you. Like obviously I'm there, so they're gonna see me, but she's supposed to be kind of the main attraction and what people are supposed to be looking at for the most part.
Yeah, your eyes in general, when I watch this go to, even though I can see Kyle, and I didn't want to hide him, they go to the puppet, and I just accept that he's there, and same with the spider. And same with Allison, the times that we see Allison. And there are times when we don't, and that's fine too, that we see him popping out of the hole. And so a mouse works well in that sense, that you can use the crutch of the mouse hole. Any comments on puppeteering, Allison?
Yeah. So I think I was, I don't know, blessed with the most movable puppet, perhaps. Like I could move his arms, I could move his feet, I could move his mouth. So what I did to prepare for that was I took him home actually, and I would just sit in my house saying words and watching his mouth to see does it look believable? Does it look like he's saying this? And I developed a lot of like tics for Templeton. Like I wanted him to like scratch his face and look around nervously, like you said, to just keep them looking alive. And I also tried to like do things to fit with the lines. So when he would say that he just ate a bunch of food, I would like rub his belly. Or he makes a lot of comments about, oh, how come you are always bothering me and I can't sleep? So I always like tried to have him yawning or something. So that was really fun for me, actually.
Allison, you did that so well. It was so good.
Thank you.
So believable.
I remember actually for like Act 1, I think I did it with my left hand. In Act 2, I did it with my right hand. So I remember like a couple days in, I was like, oh, we have to do it on this side. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I need to practice with this hand too. So that was kind of fun just to like do that.
You know, sometimes when I say, you know, I direct shows that are for children and then the actors are teenagers in general, people like, oh, poor you or whatever. And I'm like, what? No, it's great. Because if I were, you know, 2 days or a few days before we're going to open to say to a adult professional actor, like, oh, you got to switch hands. Sorry. Because the thing needs to be on this side of the stage now. You know, they might pitch a fit. And maybe rightfully so. I don't know. But I love the feeling you guys bring of just being ready for anything and ready for a challenge and taking on having the sense of like, well, if that's what we got to do, then that's what we got to do, you know, and not and staying positive, you know. So I appreciate you guys for always staying positive and accepting challenges, you know.
And like we're all here because we love acting, like we love performing for people, and it's just like watching the audience's reactions, and it's about like moving people. And I think Charlotte's Web does that really nicely because you have shows like The Cat in the Hat that's supposed to like really rile kids up and get them really moving and really excited and laughing and like really, you know, just really energetic. But like Charlotte's Web really contrasts that and has like a really different energy to it.
Yeah.
Which like you really have to be prepared for, and it's really it's good to have kids react in a much different way than a lot of the other children's shows that we do, because this one was more of like on the serious side. Like obviously, you know, there was humor, like Templeton was like the comedic relief to that show. But it was really interesting as like an actor to portray like a new character that I've never really had similar like characters to before, who was really the motherly, serious kind of like lesson storyteller figure in the show. So I just really learned a lot from Charlotte's character and what I had to do to get across to children, because you can have a serious conversation with like an adult and you can just say that more freely and open, and you don't really have to think about what you're saying as much. But with children, you really have to listen to what you are saying and understand how you need to say things for that. And like it's good to be open because you need to know how to do it properly so kids understand what you're trying to say and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's fun to. Interesting thing about putting a season together is that I try to find one that's a touch more serious than the others, one that's a touch more silly and meaningless and just a fun romp than the others, and then one that's a combination or slightly different. So in that case, that would be, you know, Mulan, I suppose, which has kind of a mix of both. Yeah, it's always interesting to you know, when choosing a season, to mix it up, do different types of work, you know.
Yeah.
We're coming down to the wire, folks. Any other last thoughts on anything at all that we've talked about, or moments of the show, lighting, technical things, anything like that?
I have a few.
Oh, and real quick, and we'll get to 1 second. I thought of earlier, just brief, real quick. You're talking about, someone was talking about Amori's character, Fern, like growing up, right, and losing the imagination of talking to animals and stuff. and it's it's always just this is just a good opportunity just to point out. So that's the abstract thing, right? And then concretely, how do you show that in a show? And you can do it simply with costume. So just consider that in the first act, she's wearing overalls and sneakers, and she looks more like a kid. Second act, she's wearing a dress that makes her look far more grown up, So all that's, just not by accident. It helps thematically carry the story to choose things like that. She could wear overalls throughout, but I think that'd be the wrong choice or missed opportunity or whatever. So I just want to make sure I got that in there. Go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
So about the puppet, I remember we had to take a bunch of the stuffing out because it was like it was very hard to move at first, and once we took all that out, like the snout could move easier, and it just felt more natural. And what else was I gonna say? So the thing that it just like with the puppet, after I watched it, it felt like I could see.
You're breaking off a bit there, Kyle, unfortunately. Yeah, fortunately breaking off there, Kyle. I can't hear you, but it sounds like you're about to say that getting a chance to watch this from an audience perspective, that you could see how the movement looked from a distance and right how it came across. I know that when you're up there manipulating it and you're behind it, it's hard. It can be hard to tell. Am I getting the sense there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
All right. So I was saying when I rewatched it, when he was sleeping, I noticed how I like moved him so it looked like he was like naturally sleeping. Like I made him have those little like movements, and sometimes like the little ticks, like with the snout just kind of moving.
Yeah.
To like add to that, and
yeah, him sniffing is a great detail that makes him very alive, and it's cute. Yeah.
I remember when at the beginning of the show with the little Wilbur, and it was that one, like it's smaller so it's easier to move, and that one was fun moving around, just making a little snap move, and yeah,
absolutely. I like the music, what little music we have in the show. Speaking of simplicity, the melodies are nice and neat and clean and sweet, and they're not too complex. They have kind of they go into minors notes and then back into major ones, so they have this sweet mixed with melancholy nature to them. So that's a detail. Any other details at all, guys? About the show, or concretes about the show, lighting, costume, anything like that?
I didn't change costume at all during the whole thing. I just wore the same costume, and I feel like Wilbur kind of, I don't know, because we were talking about how Fern kind of grew during the show, and Wilbur kind of like matures a little bit, but he still has like that childish side to him, like he's still like a child, but he
seems to fully start to appreciate Charlotte entirely, where it seems he didn't quite up until the end, and him putting that medal up there is like giving her this recognition that she deserved all along, but he was maybe too young and naive to fully understand or appreciate, and what's great about I forgot to mention about the Mr. Hooper Big Bird clip is that it's terribly sad, and it's totally it's just something that is dealing with death and approaching that subject with children, but that skit ends with them visiting a newborn baby of one of the characters. I forget which, and Charlotte's Web ends with Charlotte's child or her spider babies being born. Right. So So it shows this whole cycle of life thing, and you know, look on the bright side. There's, yeah, this is a part of life, but so is birth and new people, and you know, so it's kind of after all this this gloomy subject at the end is there's positive, uplifting note and you know, a way to look at things, with celebrating the, you know, birth and all that, new life,
The Lion King.
etc.
In The Lion King, they did something like that. You know, Lion
Yeah.
King, the queen was circle of life, and so you know we had the death of Mufasa, and then afterwards we had, you know, the death of Scar, which wasn't as sad of a death. But then right after we have the birth of Simba's kids, so it's that same concept of, you know, you have like a sad series of events followed by this new birth, solidifying that whole theme of a circle of life. And Mufasa talked about we eat the deer, but then when we die, our bodies turn to the soil that fertilizes the grass that they. And so, circle
Yeah,
of life,
yeah.
common theme, and I think it's actually very powerful how these children cartoons like were able to push that message forward. That it's kind of unfortunate that, you know, we live and we die, but then even though we die, you know, our kids or there's people that come right after us, and it's the circle of life is a real thing in real life, and they use animals and drawings and all that nice stuff like in cartoons to push forward that that adult, once again, adult topic or serious topic or whatever. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of like similar to the idea that when you die, there will be a legacy of you somehow, whether it's like through your children or through like other beings. Yeah.
Yeah, who
That was
who you influence. Yeah, and then how that makes your memory live on, and yeah, they say to Big Bird, you know, we'll always have our memories of Mr. Hooper. It's not like that's erased, you know.
Uh,
Even like, I can't believe I'm gonna say this because I hate the Star Wars prequels, but like the end of the third Star Wars one where it's like, let's see, Natalie Portman's character dies. It's pretty bleak, and then the Darth Vader, so he doesn't literally die, but it's like his soul dies. So it's like the whole movie is like about death and stuff, but it ends with like Luke and Leia being born, right? And you know what they'll do, right? You know, so there's this hope, right, of newer life, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say something I learned in philosophy class in college was one of the major themes in one of the questions about spirituality, life and death, was when you look at the big picture, it is all rather beautiful and touching, but people get hung up on death because it ends. But what I can't remember who said it, whether it was David Hume or Buddha, said when you look at the big picture, you realize that it's just self-centered thinking, like it's our existence that we're afraid about not going on forever, when it's all right. Even if we don't go on forever, things are still going to go on very nicely. It's just a nice forever ending cycle. David Hume said it's a river that just keeps going on beautifully.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of philosophers that say that's part of what makes it beautiful is it doesn't last forever, etc. etc. You know. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on for just a little kid story, but I think we've said a lot, we've covered a lot. Sorry, Amore and Nathan, that you couldn't be here, but they're big important parts of the show, and Jackson too, who is here for a little bit. But yeah, thank you guys very much. Carly, is there anything else from audience or anything else? Yeah.
No, that was it. It's just a lot of comments, you know, applauding you guys on the great performance and the wonderful set. So, and thank you
Great.
guys for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, guys.
And
Thank you so much.
next week,
Good to talk to you. I think we're doing Mulan next week. So.
awesome. Woohoo.
All right. So I'll see. Let's see. I'll see some of you for Mulan. Yeah.
Cool. We'll see you for Mulan. Bye, you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.